This is what happens when you prioritize style over function. Normally, this is the death trap of all watch design where good intentions go to die, buried under 50 layers of graphic design nonsense, but somehow this watch and this brand manages to pull it off. Yes, there's a storm in Saturn that's been raging for centuries and it's now going to be on your wrist. That's the Anicorn Cassini, and this timepiece is inspired by one of the boldest space missions ever that has nothing to do with horology. Okay, let's break it down. The case diameter is 42 millimeters with a 46 millimeter lug distance. The lug width is just 20 millimeters, and the 14.6 millimeter case thickness is also very desirable. The crystal here is an unusually shaped sapphire crystal. The case material is 316L steel that's also coated with a fingerprint resistant PVD coating. The water resistance is just 50 meters, and this is a limited edition of 1999 pieces. When it comes to the Cassini, switching straps isn't just easy, it's practically a ritual. Watch as I pop off this bracelet and use its quick release spring bars with no tools and no drama to quickly swap between straps. Just a clean snap and suddenly the whole character of the watch shifts. Now here's a loopless sailcloth strap from Artem that gives it a low profile and tactical appeal. It feels like it came from NASA's flight deck. But let's say that you want a bit of contrast, enter the Artem Hydroflex in cream variant. The texture here gives a warm impression and the color balances that deep, stormy dial. Now it's less interstellar probe and more first-class cabin of Europa 1. But this is it. This is the black sailcloth loopless strap with a matching black buckle. It has a matching stitching, smooth taper, and just the right structure to complement this case and dial. It gives you the future without looking like a toy. This is the perfect strap for this Cassini, I think. Now let's move on to the details, and this is where the Cassini moves away from the gimmick and now tugs away at that sci-fi heart of yours. The dial design mimics the hexagon storm at Saturn's North Pole. Now this is very interesting. It's a storm at the shape of a hexagon, and I kid you not, it's actually real and it's found in our solar system. And this is what the Cassini is trying to emulate and trying to represent in its dial. And not only is this not printed on the dial, it's actually represented on the actual watch hand. And this is actually interesting because it has a lot of surface area for Anicorn to finish it with this sunray finish. Now around the perimeter of the dial, there's these hash markings and numerals that is engraved on. And the numerals itself on the dial, they're based on the Cassini type numerals created by Anicorn just for this series. And they're laser etched onto the metal like a sandwich style dial. Now the actual lume here, we would expect to be a lot more potent, but in reality it isn't. It's a little bit of a disappointment there, but that's another compromise that this watch has to make. The hands are, as mentioned, skeletonized, so you can never lose sight of all the storm that's been created into this pattern. And it also gives away some of the numerals that are printed on the dial, which is the actual diameters of the storm, and also some other markings that makes it a little bit more sci-fi and retro futuristic looking. Now this case is black PVD coated and it's fingerprint resistant according to Anicorn, which means the watch stays clean even though you aren't. Now before we go on to the bad, let's listen to what you've got to say about this Anicorn Cassini. Genre Dude says it looks like a watch that came from the Alien franchise. C-Suit remarks that the brand has a lot of boldness and courage to introduce this kind of shape and hands, but unfortunately it's not a watch for him. Andra Jeftovic says it's weird stuff. And finally, according to Yoda Jenkins, he could not see it. If you had placed a tiny mirror on a black construction paper and said it was a watch, he would have believed it. Now let's get the bad stuff out of the way first. This watch is so stark and so dark that it's really hard to read. They've got this nice hexagon theme going around here with the hands, with the dial, and with the case. However, it really is hard to read. And even in daylight, not only is it too dark to read the time, but it's also the glare of this curved and unusually shaped crystal that prevents it from really being readable. And not to mention that it begs you to train yourself to read this watch, and that is a big no-no for many watch fans in the market. But again, this watch is practically designed not for the watch enthusiast, but more for the sci-fi fan. Now, At $680, you're paying for storytelling and art direction here. You can get the same movement in a spec monster microbrand for half the price. And yes, there are other also more unique looking watches other than this. Another big negative is that it only has 50 meters of water resistance, which still works for a watch, a sporty watch in that, but it's not going to sway many of watch fans. And if you don't care about the space themes or the mid-century sci-fi aesthetics, then this design probably isn't going to take you in. Another thing to talk about is this bracelet. This bracelet is very unforgiving. It looks cool, it looks comfortable. It has this very nice matte finish with its anti-fingerprint coating, but it doesn't have any half links. As many have complained, it could land either too loose on your wrist or too tight. Happily, they also provide the FKM rubber strap, which will likely be more of a fit in many watch wrists. Now, let's go on to the good. Now, this is a very design-oriented watch. The design is clearly to reference this sci-fi genre that many people right now are into. It's not aesthetic for aesthetic's sake. It's thematically locked in.
And the movement, it's reliable. It's an NH35 caliber.
Make no mistake about it, this one is not just your regular stock movement that most microbrands would use. Because this is really what you're paying for in this watch. While many people are talking about that dial and that unusual construction, it's actually the back side of the watch that's the real gem here. They used custom plates to make this really pop out. You see, I first noticed Anicorn when they collaborated with Kojima Productions on the Space Ludens project. It's an amazing watch, at least for my taste. It tugs away at two of my hearts, or the two halves of my hearts, the watch enthusiast and also the video games, sci-fi, future, whatever you call it, genre. And that's when it hit me. Anicorn is not just a watchmaker, it's actually a world builder. They thrive on these intellectual property collaborations, sci-fi visual languages, and techno-futuristic styling. They are by definition a brand that's, well, all about style and fandom, and unapologetically less about function, which ironically is what gives purpose to this brand. And just when you think that the Cassini is all about surface level theatrics, well, you flip it over and find this custom Geneva stripe plates, gold engravings, and a bespoke rotor. And that's not some off the shelf movement. As someone who sourced many of these for microbrands before, I can tell you, this kind of finishing on the Geneva stripes, custom plate engraving, custom plating in the first place, and well, a less expensive custom rotor, all of these don't come cheap. Factories don't readily just throw these in as freebies when you order a minimum order quantity. You have to spec them, you have to design them, prototype them, and meet the minimum order quantities. And yes, you pay real money for those. Now, most brands skip this and they bank on the dial to carry most of the heavy lifting. And Anicorn didn't do that. They hid their best work at the back. Yes, the dial is attention-grabbing in a contradictory way, but it's the backside that really appeals to the watchmakers and enthusiasts. So this watch is for that sci-fi geek fandom that also happens to be a watch enthusiast, which is a very, very small crowd. But you know what? You cannot underestimate that because many of Anicorn's watches have been sold out, and that's a testament to how big this niche market is. However, if you want something that's more functional, they actually have a different version of this watch that has more readily legible hands and, well, equally appealing finishing also on those hexagonal tips. Because sometimes it's all about style, and that's all that really matters. Even though it's hard to read, even though it's slightly above the normal market price, the Cassini from Anicorn might still be hitting that very nice, small, yet very enthusiastic and loyal fan base.